The world stood still on July 22nd, 2025, as news broke that Ozzy Osbourne, the iconic frontman of Black Sabbath, had passed away peacefully at the age of 76. Often referred to as the Prince of Darkness, Ozzy was more than just a performer. He was a symbol of heavy metal's evolution and rebellion. His unexpected passing sent a wave of grief across the globe, touching not only fans but also generations of musicians and industry veterans who had felt his influence in profound ways. Despite his long battle with Parkinson's disease and multiple spinal surgeries, many had believed that Ozzy, in his legendary resilience, would continue defying the odds. The announcement was surreal for many. Just weeks prior, Ozzy had delivered what would become his final performance at the monumental Back to the Beginning concert at Villa Park in Birmingham. Seated on a custom leather throne, he performed with a haunting emotional depth that would later be recognized as his farewell to the world. Fans, unaware that it was goodbye, were left stunned and heartbroken. A night to remember, the final performance. On July 5th, 2025, a historic event unfolded in Birmingham, the birthplace of heavy metal. The original members of Black Sabbath reunited for one final show titled Back to the Beginning. More than just a concert, the event was a full-circle moment, a tribute to the city where their journey began, and a curtain call to a musical legacy that changed the world. Ozzy, though physically weakened by his health battles, remained undeterred. His arrival was nothing short of theatrical, emerging on stage seated on a winged leather throne custom-designed for the night, exuding the same eerie charm he carried in the band's early days. The stage was minimalist, bathed in shadows and soft crimson light, paying homage to Black Sabbath's dark aesthetic. As he began to sing, it became clear that his voice, though raspier, retained the unmistakable energy and pain that had made him a legend. Over 45,000 fans packed the open-air stadium in Aston, Birmingham, with another 5.8 million tuning in via global livestream, a staggering number that underscored the band's enduring appeal. The atmosphere was electric, charged with both celebration and melancholy. The lineup of supporting acts was nothing short of legendary. Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Slayer, Tool, and Pantera all took the stage, each performing a tribute set and sharing personal stories of how Black Sabbath had shaped their sound and careers. A man on a mission. Behind the scenes, Ozzy had made his intentions clear. This concert was more than a performance. It was a mission. According to insiders, he had been adamant that he wanted to give his fans a proper goodbye. "I'd rather go out singing in Birmingham than die in a hospital bed," he reportedly told close friends. Despite medical advice urging him to avoid the physical toll of a live performance, Ozzy pressed on. This was his gift to his fans, to his bandmates, and to the city that made him. The event also served a philanthropic purpose. With proceeds from ticket sales, merchandise, and global donations, the concert raised an astounding €140 million for Cure Parkinson's and Birmingham Children's Hospital, causes that reflected both Ozzy's personal struggles and his commitment to giving back to his community. As the band performed Paranoid to close out the show, the lights dimmed and a hush fell over the crowd. Ozzy raised a trembling hand, tears in his eyes. Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward stood by his side, visibly moved. There were no fireworks, no confetti, just raw emotion, brotherhood, and music. It was a moment of silent understanding between legends and their loyal audience. This was goodbye, a peaceful exit. Ozzy's passing just days after the concert felt sudden, almost impossible to believe. By all accounts, his health had stabilized following the performance, and he was even considering recording one final studio track. On July 21st, he attended a private dinner with his longtime bandmates. Those who saw him said he was in high spirits, reflecting on the success of the concert and even sharing jokes. Less than 24 hours later, he died peacefully in his sleep at his home in Buckinghamshire, surrounded by his wife Sharon and their children. Fans around the world gathered for impromptu memorials. Candlelight vigils lit up the streets of Aston, and tributes poured in from every corner of the globe. Rock radio stations looped Black Sabbath classics. Social media became a digital shrine, filled with throwback photos, heartfelt messages, and memories of the wild, fearless frontman. Tony Iommi speaks out. On July 23, 2025, just one day after the world learned of Ozzy's passing, Tony Iommi finally broke his silence in an exclusive interview with ITV News. A man known for his stoicism, Tony struggled to contain his emotions. "I woke up and it hit me like a ton of bricks," he said, his voice thick with grief. The loss, he explained, wasn't just that of a bandmate but of a lifelong friend, a brother in every sense of the word. Tony recalled the days leading up to Ozzy's death. He said Ozzy had seemed almost serene, at peace in a way that was unusual for someone so full of life. There was something different in his eyes that night at Villa Park, something Tony couldn't quite name at the time. "It felt like he knew," Tony said, "like he had already said goodbye." He also revealed that Ozzy had dreamed of one more intimate performance in Birmingham, one last chance to connect with fans in a stripped-down setting. Though his health ultimately made that dream impossible, the intention behind it left a lasting impression. "He wanted to thank the fans properly," Tony continued. "Not with spectacle, but with honesty. That was Ozzy. That was the real him. A bond forged in Birmingham." Long before fame, excess, and global tours, Tony Iommi and Ozzy Osbourne were just two boys from Aston, Birmingham, growing up in a world that had little room for dreams. Their journey began not in recording studios or arenas, but in the hallways of Birchfield Road School in the 1960s. Birmingham was a city defined by its factories and working-class grit. It was a place where the future was often carved out on assembly lines, not on stages. Ozzy, born John Michael Osbourne, was the fourth of 6 children in a modest home. He was loud, mischievous, and struggled academically, often using humor to deflect attention from his dyslexia and poor grades. Yet his charisma was undeniable. Tony, by contrast, was reserved and introspective. He was the type to observe before speaking, more comfortable with a guitar than with crowds. Despite their differences, the two shared an unspoken connection. They lived just streets apart, their lives shaped by similar hardships and the unrelenting pressure of a predetermined future. Their bond deepened over the years, through local gigs, shared frustrations, and eventually, the formation of a band that would change everything. The rise of Black Sabbath. In the late 1960s, as the Cultural Revolution swept through the Western world, Tony and Ozzy, along with Geezer Butler and Bill Ward, formed Black Sabbath. Their self-titled debut album released in 1970 was unlike anything heard before, moody, dark, and haunting. It opened with the sound of thunder and church bells, setting a tone of foreboding that would become their signature. Critics were baffled, but fans instantly connected with the raw emotion and unfiltered themes. Songs about war, inner demons, and the occult tapped into the disillusionment of a generation. Later that year, their sophomore effort, Paranoid, solidified their status as pioneers. Tracks like Iron Man, War Pigs, and the titular Paranoid became anthems of rebellion. By the end of the 1970s, Black Sabbath had released a string of critically acclaimed albums and sold over 75 million records worldwide. They weren't just a band, they were a movement. Fractures and Reconciliation fame came at a cost. Years of touring and substance abuse took a toll on Ozzy, whose erratic behavior became increasingly difficult for the band to manage. In 1979, the unthinkable happened. Ozzy was fired from Black Sabbath. The split was painful but necessary, with both sides acknowledging the strain had become untenable. Ozzy embarked on a successful solo career, while Tony carried on with Sabbath, experimenting with different lineups. Despite the separation, the emotional tether between Tony and Ozzy remained. Time and maturity healed wounds, and in 2013, they reunited for the album 13, which debuted at #1 in several countries. The reunion tour that followed rekindled their brotherhood and reminded fans of the chemistry that had made them legends. Though Bill Ward didn't participate, the reunion was hailed as a triumphant return to form. A legacy that roars. For Tony Iommi, Ozzy's passing marked the end of an era, but not the end of a legacy. "There was one Ozzy, and that's it," he said solemnly. It wasn't just about the music, it was about the laughter backstage, the long nights on the road, and the shared understanding of where they came from. Ozzy's influence transcended genre. He inspired artists across the musical spectrum, from Metallica's James Hetfield to Elton John, who praised his ability to channel raw emotion through performance. Ozzy's life was a testament to resilience, a man who faced his demons, overcame adversity, and gave the world everything he had until his final breath. Tony believes that legacy will never fade. It will echo through every guitar riff, every scream of a concert crowd, and every fan who turns up the volume just a little louder in tribute. In Birmingham, on the very streets they once roamed as boys, murals now honor their legacy. Fans continue to make pilgrimages to the band's landmarks, leaving flowers, notes, and symbols of gratitude. Final reflections. Ozzy Osbourne's passing marks the end of an irreplaceable loss that closes a monumental chapter in rock and metal history. Yet, even in death, his presence remains undeniable. His voice, attitude, and larger-than-life persona helped shape the sound and spirit of Black Sabbath, the band that redefined what music could be. More than just heavy riffs and dark themes, Sabbath's legacy is about pushing boundaries. And at the heart of that legacy was the bond between Ozzy and guitarist Tony Iommi, a bond forged in youth, tested by time, and sealed by the music they created together. From their early days growing up in Birmingham, England, Ozzy and Tony shared more than just a dream of escaping the working-class grind. They shared a vision. Despite very different personalities, Ozzy, the unpredictable and wild frontman, and Tony, the quiet and focused mastermind behind Sabbath's sound, their chemistry was undeniable. Their collaboration was the foundation of a sound that would come to define heavy metal. That sound, filled with Tony's thunderous riffs and Ozzy's haunting vocals, captured something primal and real. Together, they made music that spoke to generations of fans who felt like outsiders, rebels, or seekers of something more. Their journey wasn't without challenges. Drug use, creative tensions, and lineup changes tested the band's unity. Ozzy was even fired from Black Sabbath in 1979, a move that could have permanently severed their relationship. But somehow, the bond endured. They reunited several times over the decades, most notably for the 2013 album 13, their first with Ozzy since 1978. Even as they aged, their mutual respect and admiration never faded. Tony once described Ozzy as a brother, and Ozzy often credited Tony's guidance and resilience as instrumental to his own career. What makes their relationship so remarkable is that it wasn't just about music, it was about brotherhood. Tony stood by Ozzy during some of his darkest moments, including his battle with addiction and health scares. Ozzy, in turn, never stopped acknowledging Tony's genius and the role he played in shaping his life. Their friendship was complicated, messy, but deeply human. And that's what fans connected with. Not just the music, but the story behind it. A story of two kids who turned pain, fear, and ambition into something that will outlive them both. As the world mourns Ozzy Osbourne, we also celebrate the journey he and Tony Iommi took together. Their music doesn't just exist in the past. It's still alive every time someone blasts Paranoid or gets goosebumps from War Pigs. The legacy of Black Sabbath isn't just in their records. It's in the bond that carried them through decades of chaos, creativity, and change. Ozzy may be gone, but the fire he and Tony lit together still burns bright. Their story is a reminder that true magic often lies in the imperfections, in the unfiltered, honest connection between two souls who understood each other in ways no one else could.